So I've been in the room many, many times with politicians and business leaders where somebody comes up with an idea that is either bold or stupid. And I'm usually the one to ask, well, who's going to be holding the bag when this thing goes wrong? Who's going to take responsibility for it? Sometimes the politicians listened, sometimes they didn't. But I was never in the room when people were talking about criminal justice reform. Had I been there, I would say, listen, when we start letting all these people out of jail with no bail or low bail, really, really dangerous people, when we let them out on the street, what's going to happen? When we start letting killers out of prison early, what's going to happen? And I can only imagine nobody asked that question, or if they did ask it, everybody just sat around and agreed in a big hurry that that could never happen. Oh yeah, it happens. It's happening all the time now.
News right now, police say a man was out on bond on a murder charge when he shot an 11-year-old boy. He went before a judge tonight. Our Michelle Choi is live with those details. Michelle?
Lisa, that man is back in jail this morning. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo tweeting about his arrest, saying that he's happy 18-year-old Cottrell Beasley is back in custody, arrested for that shooting. But he says Beasley should have never been out of jail in the first place. Take a look. Beasley stood before a judge around 2:30 this morning. Now, prosecutors say last week Beasley shot into an apartment with an assault rifle and nearly killed an 11-year-old boy inside. Now, this all happened while Beasley was out on bond pending a murder charge after a judge gave him a low bail. Well, this time the judge ordered him held without bond. Chief Art Acevedo says this is just the latest example of a continuing problem. He called out local judges for letting dangerous criminals out on low bonds only to see them commit more felonies when they're out. Now, Chief Acevedo says he is not done talking about this issue.
But at the intersection just across the street there, and the man who's now charged with murder is still at large. He was already out on bond for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for a shooting back in February.
To a horrifying case of road rage that has devastated a family in Katy. Their loved one was shot to death by another driver, and the victim's wife saw the whole thing. Take a look at this. This is the accused killer, and he's still out there tonight. Jason Miles has the exclusive interview with the victim's family about this heartbreaking case.
This red bandana and other remembrances mark the spot where Eric Starr died this weekend. His widow tells me she would not wish this kind of pain on her worst enemy.
We weren't finished living our life together.
Eric Starr's youngest son cannot fully comprehend what happened to his dad this weekend, and it still hasn't fully sunken in for wife Anastasia.
I don't care how much hate I have in my heart for anybody. I would never wish this upon anybody.
She witnessed her husband's murder early Saturday morning at Mason Road and Morton Ranch in Katy. Minutes after, she says, he may have accidentally cut off another driver on the freeway as they returned home from dinner and a movie. The Harris County Sheriff's Office identified and charged 22-year-old Dietrich Thomas with murder for allegedly shooting Starr after the two vehicles stopped and Starr got out of his car. But Thomas has yet to be arrested.
Because of him, I lost somebody that meant the world to me and my boys.
Like some in the law enforcement community, Starr's friends and family are upset the suspect was already out on bond for an unrelated shooting when this happened.
He was gunned down needlessly, violently, and they need to bring the culprit to justice.
If he had already committed a crime like this before, then why did they even let him go?
In South Nashville last year while he took out the trash.
Brown bonded out of jail after people raised money for her online, despite Wayne's family's best efforts to keep her behind bars. Fox 17 News' Nicole Johnson joining us live tonight with new information about this arrest. Nicole.
Not long after Brown walked out of jail, she was arrested again. This time, investigators say the 17-year-old had keys to a stolen car, ecstasy, and marijuana. Now, they arrested her after she ran out of the back door of a Nashville home on 7th Street. Wang's family tells me this just proves she shouldn't have been let out in the first place. Their biggest concern is that she's a danger to Nashville.
Thank God, she hasn't killed anyone, but you know, in the future, The criminal justice system not only should think about how criminals should be treated, should be rehabilitated, but at the same time also need to help them responsible.
Brown was let out after an organization, Epic Girl, vouched for her behavior and sparked the crowdfunding. Tomorrow, the state will argue why Brown's bond should be revoked. Wang's family plans to be there. At the moment, their lives are put on hold, as you can imagine.
Down in South Carolina, this guy's just got out of jail on bail for killing someone. One of the first things he does is tracks down his old girlfriend who's partying with a new fella. The old fella didn't like that. The accused killer took out his gun and shot him. I don't know what's going to happen to his bond now. And this just came in. Here's a guy that was 10 years ago. He was convicted of killing somebody, and he did less than 10 years for murder. Now he's back in jail on another murder charge, except this time he killed 3 people. All this down in Durham, North Carolina. Up in Racine, Wisconsin, about a month or so ago, Daquavius Ward was just released from federal prison, and he'd been in there he'd been in a lot of trouble his whole life. Guns, money, drugs, bitch, assaults, armed robberies, that kind of thing. Anyway, he's out of federal prison for 4 days when he walks into a bar in Racine, Wisconsin, try to rob the place. An off-duty cop tries to stop it. This guy kills the cop, all while he should still be cooling his heels in federal prison. So who's holding the bag? Where are the geniuses that told us we had to let people out of jail and out of prison because the only reason they're in there is because we are criminalizing poverty? The only reason they're in prison is because there are too many black people in prison because of systemic racism, and that explains everything all the time, everywhere. Who's holding the bag for that?
Please, sir. I want some more.
Jared Kushner, Van Jones, the President of the United States, all these district attorneys all over the country who have suddenly found religion and figured out that there's so many people in jail that shouldn't be there. Yeah, that's what the new district, the person who has the Democratic nomination, which means she's going to win the job, Democratic nomination for the district attorney in Queens. That's almost what she said the other day in her victory speech. She dedicated her campaign to the people in Rikers Island who are in there because they can't afford the bond. So she wants to let them all out. Who's going to ask her when the inevitable happens? Who's going to ask her when she unleashes this new crime wave on the streets of Queens, New York? Probably nobody. Because asking politicians about the consequences of these ridiculously, obviously, transparently stupid and dangerous policies, that's something that simply isn't done because that makes the black kids angry.